The Silent Queen, Elizabeth II, and 70 years of power without politics. I have to be seen to be believed. With those words, Elizabeth II didn't just explain her job. She explained her entire strategy. Born in 1926, Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor was never supposed to be queen. She was third in line, a spare. Her uncle was king, her father was second in line. But in 1936, her uncle abdicated. For love. For an American divorcee. And suddenly, Elizabeth's father was king. And she was heir. She was 10 years old. For the next 16 years, she prepared, studied, trained, watched her father navigate World War II, post-war recovery, and the slow death of the British Empire. And on February 6th, 1952, at age 25, her father died. Elizabeth became queen. For the next 70 years, 2 months and 7 days, she ruled. Not governed, ruled. She met 15 prime ministers, from Winston Churchill to Liz Truss, survived scandals that would destroy normal families, watched the British Empire collapse into the Commonwealth, modernized a 1,000-year-old institution without breaking it. And through it all, she never gave a single interview, never explained herself, never apologized. Her power was silence. Her strength was consistency. Her legacy is that she made an ancient monarchy survive the modern world. And on September 8th, 2022, at age 96, she died. The longest reigning monarch in British history. This is not a story about a woman who ruled nations. She didn't. Britain is a constitutional monarchy. She had no political power. This is a story about influence without authority. About a woman who couldn't make laws but shaped a century anyway. About how silence can be more powerful than speech. If stories about power, duty, and women who changed the world by refusing to change themselves interest you, like, comment, and subscribe for Untold Legacies and the Women Who Defined Eras. Part 1. The Girl Who Was Never Supposed to Be Queen. April 21st, 1926. London, England. Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor is born. Her parents, Prince Albert, Duke of York, and Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. Her grandfather, King George V. Her uncle, Edward, Prince of Wales. Next in line for the throne. Elizabeth is third in line. After her uncle Edward and her father Albert. Third in line means probably will never be queen. So Elizabeth grows up relatively normal. For royalty. She lives in a townhouse in Piccadilly. Not a palace. She has a sister, Margaret, born in 1930. They play. They fight. They are educated at home by governesses. Elizabeth is serious, responsible, loves horses and dogs. Margaret is wild, fun, charismatic. Their childhood is sheltered, but happy. And then in 1936, everything changes. Part 2. This Abdication Crisis. January 20th, 1936. King George V dies. Elizabeth's uncle, Edward, becomes King Edward VIII. He is 41, unmarried, handsome, popular. But he is in love with Wallis Simpson, an American, a divorcee, twice divorced. The Church of England, which the king heads, forbids marriage to divorcees. Edward has a choice, the throne or Wallis. He chooses Wallis. December 11th, 1936, Edward VIII abdicates. After 11 months as king, he gives a radio address. I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love. He leaves England, marries Wallis, lives in exile, and Elizabeth's father becomes King George VI. Elizabeth is now heir to the throne. She is 10 years old. Part 3. preparing for the throne. 1936 to 1952. Elizabeth prepares to be queen. She studies constitutional history, British law, the Commonwealth. She learns French, practiced public speaking, watched her father. But her childhood is interrupted by World War II. 1939. War begins. Elizabeth is 13. The royal family stays in London. They refuse to evacuate. The children won't go without me. I won't leave the king. And the king will never leave. Buckingham Palace is bombed 9 times. The family survives. Elizabeth wants to contribute. In 1945, age 18, she joins the Women's Auxiliary Territorial Service. She trains as a driver and mechanic. She is the first female royal to serve in the armed forces. And during the war, she meets Philip. Part 4. Philip Mountbatten. Philip Mountbatten, Greek and Danish prince. No kingdom, no money. Naval officer. Elizabeth meets him when she is 13. He is 18. She is smitten. They correspond throughout the war. Letters, visits. In 1946, Philip asks King George VI for permission to marry Elizabeth. George says, "Wait. Elizabeth is too young. She needs more time." But Elizabeth is determined. 1947. Elizabeth turns 21. Philip asks again. George agrees. November 20th, 1947. They marry. Philip gives up his Greek and Danish titles. Converts from Greek Orthodox to Church of England. Becomes Philip Mountbatten, Duke of Edinburgh. The marriage is happy. They have 4 children. Charles, Anne, Andrew, Edward. But in 1952, everything changes. Part 5. The Death of the King. February 6, 1952. King George VI dies in his sleep, age 56. Lung cancer. Elizabeth is in Kenya, on a royal tour with Philip. She learns of her father's death from Philip. He tells her gently. She is now queen, age 25. She flies back to England immediately, in black mourning clothes. She is met by Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister. He is 77, she is 25. He kisses her hand, calls her Your Majesty. Elizabeth is queen. The weight of the crown is now hers. Part 6. The Coronation. June 2nd, 1953. Westminster Abbey, London. Elizabeth's coronation. The first to be televised. 27 million people in the UK watch. Hundreds of millions worldwide. The ceremony lasts 3 hours. Elizabeth is crowned, anointed. Takes her oath. I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service. She is 27 years old, and she keeps that promise for 70 years. Part 7. The Commonwealth. When Elizabeth becomes queen in 1952, the British Empire is dying. India gained independence in 1947. More colonies demand freedom. Elizabeth's role. Transform the empire into the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth. Voluntary association of independent nations. Mostly former British colonies. The Queen is the symbolic head. Between 1952 and 2022, Elizabeth oversees the transition of dozens of colonies to independence. She never resists, never tries to hold on. She understands the empire is over. The Commonwealth is the future. By the end of her reign, the Commonwealth has 56 member nations, 2.5 billion people. Elizabeth visits most of them, multiple times. She becomes the most traveled head of state in history. Part 8. The Silent Strategy. Elizabeth develops a strategy. Silence. She never gives interviews, never writes a memoir, never explains her decisions. Why? Because the British monarchy survives by not having opinions. Prime ministers come and go, policies change, governments rise and fall. The Queen remains. Neutral. Constant. Above politics. She meets with the Prime Minister weekly. They discuss government matters. But what they discuss is secret. The Prime Minister cannot reveal it. Neither can she. This creates mystique. Power through mystery. Elizabeth never publicly criticizes anyone. Never praises anyone politically. She is a blank screen. People project onto her what they want. And it works. Part 9. The 15 Prime Ministers. Elizabeth works with 15 Prime Ministers. Winston Churchill, 1952 to 1955. He is 77 when she becomes Queen. He adores her, treats her like a granddaughter. Anthony Eden, Harold Macmillan, Halleck Douglas Hume, Harold Wilson, Edward Heath, Harold Wilson again, James Callaghan, Margaret Thatcher. Thatcher is complicated. The first female Prime Minister, 1979 to 1990. Elizabeth and Thatcher are both powerful women, but different. Thatcher is ideological, confrontational. Elizabeth is neutral, diplomatic. They meet weekly. The meetings are reportedly tense, but Elizabeth never publicly criticizes Thatcher. John Major, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss. 15 prime ministers. 70 years. She outlasts them all. Part 10. The scandals begin. 1992. Elizabeth calls it her annus horribilis, horrible year. 3 of her 4 children's marriages collapse. Charles and Diana separate. Publicly. Bitterly. Andrew and Sarah Ferguson separate. Anne divorces Mark Phillips. And Windsor Castle catches fire. Massive damage. The press turns on the royal family. Why should taxpayers pay to repair the castle? Elizabeth agrees to pay taxes. For toost time. So, the royal finances are made semi-public. Their family is no longer untouchable. Part 11. Diana. Princess Diana. Married Charles in 1981. Charles in 1996. That Diana was the most popular royal. More popular than the Queen. She was charismatic, emotional, accessible. Everything Elizabeth was not. Diana used the press, gave interviews, shared her feelings. The 1995 BBC interview. Diana says, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded," referring to Camilla Parker Bowles, Charles's longtime mistress. The public sides with Diana, against Charles, against the royal family. Elizabeth stays silent. Part 12. August 31st, 1997. Diana dies. Car crash in Paris. Pont de l'Alma Tunnel. Age 36. She is with Dodi Fayed, her boyfriend. They are fleeing paparazzi. The car crashes at high speed. Dodi dies instantly. Diana dies hours later in hospital. The world is shocked, devastated. Diana was beloved, the people's princess, the most photographed woman in the world, and now she is dead. Within hours, flowers pile up outside Kensington Palace. Her home, mountains of flowers, teddy bears, cards, candles. The grief is overwhelming, public, raw. But the royal family is at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, on summer holiday. They do not return to London. They do not issue a statement. They do not lower the flag at Buckingham Palace to half-mast. Why? Diana was no longer royal. She was divorced, and the royal family grieves privately. Always has, always will. But the public does not understand this, or accept it. They want the Queen. They want her to mourn. Publicly. Visibly. Emotionally. The press becomes hostile. Headlines scream, "Where is the Queen? Show us you care." Your people are suffering. Tony Blair, the Prime Minister, calls Diana the people's princess. He shows emotion. He connects. The Queen stays silent. For 5 days. Elizabeth's advisors beg her, return to London, address the nation, show grief. But Elizabeth resists. She is protecting her grandsons, William and Harry, ages 15 and 12. They are grieving. They need privacy. But finally, on September 5th, she agrees. She returns to London. She walks among the flowers outside Kensington Palace, looks at the tributes, talks to mourners. That evening she gives a televised address, live from Buckingham Palace. What I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. It is the most personal speech Elizabeth ever gives. She calls Diana by her first name. She speaks as a grandmother, not just as Queen. And it works. The public forgives her. The anger dissipates. The monarchy survives. Part 13. The Modernization. After Diana, Elizabeth modernizes. She opens Buckingham Palace to the public, for tours, to raise money. She allows more media access, controlled, but more than before. She updates royal finances, more transparency. She allows Charles to marry Camilla in 2005. Despite Camilla being divorced, this would have been unthinkable in 1936. But times change. Elizabeth changes with them. Slowly, carefully, but she changes. Part 14. The Golden Jubilee, 2002. Elizabeth's 50th year as Queen. Celebrations across the UK and Commonwealth. But also tragedy. Princess Margaret dies. February 9th, age 71. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, Elizabeth's mother, dies. March 30th, age 101. Elizabeth loses her sister and mother within 2 months. But the Golden Jubilee continues. 1 million people line the streets of London. Elizabeth is 76. Still working. Still reigning. Part 15. The Diamond Jubilee. 2012. Elizabeth's 60th year as Queen. Only Queen Victoria reached 60 years. Elizabeth now equals her. More celebrations. River pageant. Concert. Parade. Elizabeth is 86. She opens the London Olympics. A video shows her with James Bond, Daniel Craig. It goes viral. She jumps from a helicopter into the stadium. Played by a stunt double, of course. But the world loves it. The Queen has a sense of humor. Part 16. The abdication question. Throughout her reign, people ask, will Elizabeth abdicate? Her uncle abdicated. Other European monarchs abdicate. Why doesn't she? Her answer, though never spoken, duty. She made a promise. My whole life shall be devoted to your service. Abdication would break that promise, so she never considers it. Even when the Philip retires from public duties at 96. I guess that continues, even when she can barely walk. Elizabeth continues. Part 17. Philip dies. She's April 9th, 2021. Prince Philip dies, age 99. They were married 73 years. To COVID restrictions, the funeral is small, 30 people. A photograph goes viral. Elizabeth sitting alone in the chapel, masked, socially distanced, a queen, a widow. Alone, she is 94, and she continues working. Part 18. The Platinum Jubilee. 2022. Elizabeth's 70th year as Queen. No monarch in British history has reached 70 years. With a growing sense of significance. Celebrations are planned across the UK, but Elizabeth is frail. She cancels some appearances. Delegates to Charles and William, June 2nd to 5th, 2022. Jubilee weekend. Concerts, parades, street parties. Elizabeth appears on the Buckingham Palace balcony. Waves, smiles. It is one of her last public appearances. Part 19. September 8th, 2022. Summer 2022. Elizabeth is visibly declining. She stays at Balmoral Castle, in Scotland, her favorite place. September 6th. She meets the new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. Performs her constitutional duty for the last time. September 8th. Buckingham Palace announces the Queen's doctors are concerned for Her Majesty's health. The family rushes to Balmoral. Charles, Anne, William, Harry. But they are too late. Elizabeth dies peacefully at 3:10 p.m., age 96. 70 years, 2 months, and 7 days as Queen. The longest reign in British history. Part 20. The reaction. The world mourns. 10 days of national mourning. Flags at half-mast. The tributes everywhere. World leaders issue statements. President Biden, President Macron, Chancellor Scholz. Everyone. The queue to see her lying in state stretches for miles. People wait 12 hours just to pay respects for a few seconds. September 19th. The funeral. Westminster Abbey. 2,000 guests. Royalty from across the world. World leaders. Dignitaries. The service is watched by billions. Globally. Elizabeth is buried at Windsor Castle, next to Philip. Part 21. The Legacy of Silence. What did Elizabeth achieve? She stabilized the monarchy. When she became queen, the monarchy was fragile. After the abdication, after the war, she made it essential by being consistent, reliable, non-political. She modernized without destroying tradition, opened palaces, paid taxes, allowed media access, but kept the core intact. She held the Commonwealth together, not through force, but presence, through visits, through diplomacy, and she did it all through silence, by never explaining, never justifying, never engaging. Part 22. The price of silence. But silence has a cost. Elizabeth never defended herself. When Diana died, when the press attacked, when Andrew's scandals emerged, she stayed silent. And silence is often interpreted as guilt or coldness. She never shared her feelings. Even with family, reportedly. She was emotionally distant. Caramel. Reserved. Charles felt unloved. Margaret felt controlled. But Elizabeth believed duty over emotion. Crown over family. The woman behind the crown. Who was Elizabeth as a person? She loved horses, dogs, corgis especially. She bred them. She loved the countryside. Scotland. Balmoral. She had a wicked sense of humor. Dry, witty. She did impressions of world leaders, privately, never publicly. She drove herself, in Land Rovers, but the public rarely saw this side. She kept it private, because she understood the crown requires mystery. Part 24. Comparing to Elizabeth I. 2 Elizabethan ages, 400 years apart. Elizabeth I, 1558 to 1603, 45 years. They were married, defeated Spain. Golden Age. Elizabeth II, 1952 to 2022, 70 years. Married, Ended empire peacefully. Modern age. Philth used similar strategies. Control information. Create mystique. Project Strength. Both succeeded, against enormous odds. Part 25. The criticism. Not everyone loved Elizabeth. Republicans want to abolish the monarchy. They say it is outdated, undemocratic, expensive. Former colonies resent the crown, symbols of oppression. Prince Andrew's scandals, Epstein connections. The family protected him. Elizabeth reportedly paid his legal fees. Harry and Meghan's departure. They accused the family of racism. Elizabeth stayed silent. The criticisms are valid. The monarchy has problems, but Elizabeth survived them all. By outlasting critics. Part 26. What she could not control. Elizabeth controlled her image, her message, her family's behavior, mostly. But she could not control everything. Andrew's scandals, Diana's death, Harry's departure. The crown cannot control individuals, only manage consequences. And Elizabeth managed. She protected the institution, even if individuals were damaged. Part 27. King Charles III. We comes king at 73, the time's to oldest person to ever accede. He is different from Elizabeth, opinionated, activist, outspoken. And he maintained the neutrality Elizabeth perfected. Or will his personality damage the monarchy? Time will tell. Part 28. Why the monarchy survives. Monarchies are dying. Most of Europe abolished theirs. Why does Britain survive? Because of Elizabeth. She made it work. By being boring, reliable, constant. In a chaotic world, she was stability. And people value that. Part 29. Lessons from the Silent Queen. What does Elizabeth's story teach us? Lesson 1. Consistency is power. Elizabeth never changed. That was her strength. Lesson 2. Silence can be strategic. Not speaking is sometimes more powerful than speaking. Lesson 3. Duty over self. Elizabeth put the crown above everything. Her happiness, her family, herself. Lesson 4. Adapt or die. She modernized. Slowly. But she did it. That is why the monarchy survived. Part 30. Why this channel exists. If this exposed something about power, duty, and women who changed the world by refusing to change themselves, do 3 things. 1. Like this video. 2. Subscribe and turn on notifications. 3. Comment and tell me, was Elizabeth's silence strength or weakness? Should she have spoken more? Or was silence her genius? Elizabeth II reigned for 70 years. She never gave an interview, never wrote a memoir, never explained herself. And yet, she became one of the most influential women of the 20th century. Not through laws, not through speeches, not through politics, but through presence, through consistency, through silence. She understood something most people miss. Power is not always loud. Sometimes, power is quiet. And the quietest person in the room is often the most powerful. Final thanks and shoutouts. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, you are part of the Her Empire community. This channel exists to tell the truth about powerful women. The ones who ruled, the ones who influenced, the ones who changed history. Elizabeth II changed history by refusing to change herself. Next week, we will cover another story, another woman, another examination of power and how it works. Until then, remember, power takes many forms, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. Stay curious, stay critical, and never underestimate the power of silence.